He is incredibly accurate. He can put the ball in a mailbox. Like, he has got pinpoint accuracy. And
Oh, I
to
love
me,
this. I have not heard you say this. I cannot wait to
yeah,
hear this.
I think where he is, he's further along on offense. Number one. Number two, he wants to play offense.
Who is your favorite player to watch on tape?
Stop it.
There's nothing like
Stop it. You're going to say this right now. You just literally stole my answer.
College football has never been better. Interest has never been higher. Believe that we are at the dawn of the golden age of college football. What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Joel Klatt Show. I am Joel Klatt, and this show, as always, is brought to you by Hampton, by Hilton, and we thank them for their support, as always. Big show for us lined up. I'm going to talk with Daniel Jeremiah. That's coming straight up. But first, just remember, wherever you're at, you got to go and you got to subscribe to our YouTube channel because that's where all of our content lives. Even some of the stuff that you don't get just as audio, like we've got our schematic series, Understanding Football, that is up there on the YouTube channel. So go over there and subscribe to the YouTube channel for us. Hit the notification button and you'll know exactly when any of our content drops. And then you can follow us on social media as well. Wherever you like to social media, we're out there. At Joel Klatt Show is where you can do that. Okay, so we are getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. I'm going to have a mock draft coming up next week right before the draft. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But I always, during this process, like to talk with the guy that I get to run with a little bit and be on the air with for the NFL draft, and that's Daniel Jeremiah. I'll be on the NFL Network with Daniel, Charles Davis, Rich Eisen. So we'll be live from Green Bay on night 1 and night 2. He obviously does a great podcast, Move the Sticks. He's one of the best in the business. So let's get to it, and let's start talking about some of these topics that I want to go over with him right away. So without further ado, let's bring in from the NFL Network, Daniel Jeremiah. And here he is. Welcome him in, the legend, Daniel Jeremiah. I mean, this is my favorite show of the year, buddy.
Well, it's easily top 10 for me, maybe top 15, maybe top 15, but I am impressed by your background, man.
Thank you. We've worked hard.
You haven't grown much as a human being, but the set that you conduct your show on has grown tremendously since we've been friends.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that our director took a one shot of you as we were talking about our set. So that was that was great. We did this because of you. 2 years ago, you ripped on my dark set, which it did look like. In fairness, it was a little dark. But listen, all that being said, I really do appreciate you coming on because I know this time of year. We were talking the other day, and you mentioned a couple of names that I'll be honest, I don't know. And you were like, yeah, I just got done watching tape. And I was like, whoa. I was like, you are in the deep dives of draft prep. So thank you, man. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's the Monmouth type of year is what I like to refer to it as. Watched a lot of Monmouth tape over the last week.
How they doing?
Competitive,
Great.
I like the feistiness to that program. But yeah, no, it's that time of year. But I love getting to meet up with you when we do this little connection that we do on your show every year. And then, as you know, I mean, like, there's nothing better than the draft. We have such a blast. We get such a great group, and love having you on there.
Yeah. Can't wait for that. We'll be there live, NFL Network. I'll be on night 1 and night 2 with Rich Eisen, DJ leading the charge for us, and CD, Charles Davis. So we will be there on the NFL Network live in Green Bay. Okay, let's get going. And we always got to start with quarterbacks. And this year is an interesting quarterback class. I wouldn't call it an elite quarterback class necessarily, but let's talk about the quarterbacks, and I want to talk about the top 3, okay? Because we have them ordered a little bit differently. I have Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward, and then we both have Jaxson Dart at number 3. But if I just said quarterbacks top end of the draft, DJ, what do you say?
For me, I think it's the way I have it. I have it Cam Ward, then I have a little bit of a gap before we get to Shedeur. I think, to me, 2 is closer to 3 than 2 is closer to 1. With Shedeur being in the 2 hole for me. And that's, I think that will change and vary by some teams. I don't think there's anything, totally universal there. I would say the majority of people have Cam as the top guy. And you talk to a lot of the same folks that I talk to, but that's not universal. And I think if you just look at the 30,000 foot view of these quarterbacks, of these top three guys, it's nothing like what we saw last year. For me, at least, that's the way I see it. And
yeah,
I
all
like
those guys in the top 15. It was wild.
We saw 6 of those guys go. So to me, I always tell people, like, the grade for me on Cam was the same grade that I gave to Bo Nix. So for context, that's how I view him. And I like Cam. I think he's got a live arm. I like the fact that, over his travels, I think you've seen him get better and better throughout his college career.
Sure.
Kind of carried that Miami team on his back last year. The defense was terrible. And to me, when I watch these two guys, the first two guys, and we'll get to Jaxson, and I'd love to flip it back to you to get the counter take on it. But when I watched them, one of the parts I did was I said, I'm going to watch 3 games on each guy, and I'm going to watch them back to back, same day. I want it to be fresh in my mind. I want to see what I think the differences are. And on the plus side for Cam, first of all, he'll challenge every blade of grass with his arm strength.
Yes.
He will
yes.
pump
and
the ball
willingness
outside
to do
the
it.
numbers. And he has no fear. There is no fear in that dojo. Like, he is in attack mode. So
that's such a good reference.
You know what I mean?
You just like, that was very like underhanded. That was excellent. Because I
did not love the latest
references.
season. I did not love the latest, the final season of Cobra Kai. I was
no.
on it.
I mean, but we're talking about the pain does not exist in this dojo, so you're good.
Yeah, but to me, I thought there was a noticeable difference in how they each drove the football. I thought Cam can access more of the field with his arm than Shedeur can. Well, so that was one part of it. The other thing I thought was, there's times when you get free rushers on Cam. Now, he doesn't have as many free rushers as Shedeur had for the issues they had in front of him. But I thought he was stronger and sturdier, where you can kind of see him pull through bodies. You can kind of, when space gets constricted, I didn't think he needed a lot of space to operate there. He just felt to me like a stronger guy. So that was the main issue for me. And that's, kind of why led me to Cam as my top guy.
Yeah. And listen, I get all that, because I like Cam a lot. And here's one of the things that I really like about, all 3 of these guys mainly, but these top 2 in the draft, is they've played a ton of football, and I'm a big believer in that. We've talked about that at length. If you look at the starters that have won Super Bowls in this league, generally speaking, you go back to their college career as a whole, and they are wildly experienced. And so from that standpoint, both of these guys have taken a lot of snaps. I really like that. Everything you said about Cam is absolutely accurate. The other thing that I really like about both of these guys is they each played behind what I would consider to be poor offensive lines at times in their careers. Wouldn't you agree? Even, you look at Cam at Washington State, it wasn't great in front of him. And clearly we know the issues that Colorado had in front of Shedeur. And yet they showed a lot of toughness and grit and the ability to make plays even in the face of that, because that's going to be a lot more, let's just say that's going to be more similar to what they're going to be asked to do at the NFL level versus what some guys do at the college level when their team is just so much better than everybody that they're playing in terms of their margin from their opposition. So that's number one. As far as Shedeur goes, here's the only thing I would say about Shedeur. I mean, I know exactly how bad Colorado was before they all got there. And everyone wants to talk about Deion. And yes, that's a huge catalyst. There's no doubt. And he built that roster. And yes, there was an influx of talent. But man, like, the biggest difference was that they finally had a quarterback, and knowing that and being close to that and seeing how high he raised the level of all the boats in the harbor, if you will, to me was pretty special. And then there's this combination of surgeon and magician with Shedeur. And you're right about some of the strength issues. And I think that there are times when he's retreating more than I would like to see him retreat. But you get these moments when everything is right, that he is surgical. And I mean, like, on time, on target, he's very accurate. And then you get these times when everything breaks down and he turns into a magician, and he can create time in order to make a play down the field. So those are the things that I would say about Shedeur.
Yeah, and I to me, the 2 things that you can hang your hat on, and I don't know that you'd find much argument on, are, and I said it like this: you can have the debate about Shedeur, you can talk about this, that, or that. You can't question his toughness. Number one, that's you're just not allowed to. That you can't watch that tape and question that guy's toughness. He did not wilt after getting hit like crazy. Some of it, even his own fault at times, holding the ball, which we'll get to that in a minute. But toughness, unquestionable. The other thing is when things are clean and he's got sight lines, he is incredibly accurate. He can put the ball in a mailbox. Like, he has got pinpoint accuracy when things are there for him. So, to me, the arm strength thing is part of it, just, driving the ball outside. And even at the pro day, they didn't really drive it outside the numbers.
No.
And he throws a beautiful in cut. That's like, it's one of the best throws that he makes. But that was kind of one of them. And then I think, to me, and not to crush the Big 12, but the caliber of athlete that he was able to escape and elude in some of those games. I saw it with Caleb. I mean, even Caleb was playing to me at that conference at that time, which Shedeur was in the year before. There was more quality of athlete there, and Caleb couldn't do those exact things when he got to the NFL, and Caleb is a much better athlete. So I don't think that's going to be a huge part of his game. I think it's going to be more of, I think the magician's maybe going to be on the sideline, and I think the surgeon's going to need a raise. Like that to me is what his style is going to be at the next level.
Well, and that's, my thing always when it comes to quarterback play, when I'm trying to project, is like, can you be on time and on target?
Yeah.
And there were times when he was, and then there were times when he wasn't. Love your thoughts on Jaxson Dart. Do we think during this process that he could sneak into the back end of the first round? Does it depend on where Shedeur goes, how high, or maybe where he slips, depending on if he gets selected in the top 5 or 10 or 15?
Yeah. Look, we're getting close, Joel. When you get close, there's so much conflicting information that's flying around when you talk to folks. I've talked to people who think that when it's all said and done, we might only have one quarterback go in the first round. You talk to other people and they say we're going to have 3 go in the top 10, especially with the Derek Carr information that's now out there about his shoulder issues that he's having in New Orleans, holding the 9th overall pick.
That's right. And all of a sudden now you would assume that New Orleans has a quarterback need.
Correct. So unless they might be on the Spencer Rattler train, man, they might be taking that thing and going for a spin on that. We'll see. But when I get asked this question, I always want to say, can I tell you after the Giants pick?
That's a good
How many quarterbacks are going to go? Where are they going? Because the Giants feel to me like the Shedeur team. And if for some reason the Giants, and you could make a strong case of why they, should take a quarterback because of the need they have at that position, you can also make a case that there's 2 elite players in this draft, and they have a chance to get one of them between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And then if that happens, now I think Jaxson Dart gets interesting, because I think the Giants are going to come away with a quarterback with one of their first 2 picks. I think Cleveland is going to come away with a quarterback with their 2nd pick. I don't think they're doing it with their first one. So that's a perfect
Dart landing spot if Shedeur gets taken up front.
Yeah, if the Giants don't take Shedeur, and then Shedeur were to go to New Orleans, or he even goes to Pittsburgh, or wherever he goes later on in the draft, my antenna would be up for the Giants and Jaxson Dart. So, I mean, that I would keep an eye on that. I do think it's a coin flip of whether Jaxson Dart goes in the first round. But, the things I like about him, you talk about him as a player, and I love to get your thoughts on it as well. But I made the comparison, which was a little unorthodox, but it reminded me of Jalen Hurts' journey. Not necessarily the identical, comp as a player, but guys that got better each and every year. Guys who, when you talk to folks around them, they talk about their competitiveness, their toughness, their likability. Teammates love being around them, and that was at both places, at SC and at Ole Miss. To me, I thought his best football still in front of him, with the trend line kind of heading in the positive direction. He doesn't have like elite arm strength, but it's good. He's not an elite athlete, but he's a good athlete who ran a bunch in the SEC and got a bunch of production there. Kind of buying the kid, kind of buying the competitive kid, and buying the trend line. Jalen Hurts, I was there for his first training camp, Joel, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, like, this guy was not a finished product when the Eagles selected him in the 2nd round, but the trend line was headed in the right direction, and the guy just worked his butt off and made it kind of happen. So that's why I saw that comparison with those guys.
So funny, because you thought Jalen Hurts. Do you know what I thought of? Because it was more of a college comp through the growth. Jalen has grown since you saw him in that first training camp until now, right? Obviously, Super Bowl champion. When I see Jaxson Dart, I see again, not a direct player comparison, but a trend line through college similar to kind of a Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Where, it's kind of like there's flashes early, and yet every year you get a little bit better and you get a little bit better. And then towards the end, and Bo got to play forever, right? What did he start? I think it was 61 or 62 games. And by the end, you're like, okay, like I can see this. That's a similar feeling that I have with Jaxson Dart. Here's a one concern that I would have is with Bo, I could project into, and specifically, and I did, and we talked about this, Sean Payton's offense, right? Because I'm like, yep, this is what he was kind of asked to do at Oregon, and you can project that forward. I struggle with Lane's offense. Not that it's not a quality offense. It's a great college offense, but there are so many wide open throws or pre-snap decision throws. And you know what I'm talking about, right? Like you watch this tape and you're like, scripted winners, man, and they are all over the place, which is why Lane can be on the sideline raising his hands, because it's like everyone knows where the ball is going, and there's not a ton of post-snap, got to be a dog in the pocket, control the game, and you've got 5 guys, where's the ball going? And so that would be my only concern with Jaxson, because I agree with you on the trend line. I do think he's going to succeed. I think he's going to get taken at worst in the top, I would say 40 picks in the draft. And at that point, it's about location and fit.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything you just said. And, the challenge, I would put it back to you is, and I don't know if I'm sure we've talked about this. I know I've talked about it with Kurt Warner, and we'll have the conversation most likely on the air when the draft gets going. But outside of Joe Burrow, man, it's hard to go through the Rolodex of players that in college you saw work deeply into progressions. Like that's just, you see it every week, Joe. Like it's just really not much of the college game anymore.
It's true.
Bo Nix, the accuracy was off the charts, but it was catch, rock, throw. The whole time there, to the point where it's like, gosh, okay, well, can he operate in the middle of the field, because it's all quick hitters and then some schemed winners down the field and over the top. It's never been harder to project guys to the next level if you're just going to look at the system and the scheme. Because
who tried to read it out a lot?
Who's that?
Colorado.
Yeah.
Which didn't work out a lot for their offensive.
Yeah. Holden, sack.
You brought up in your answer there, talking about the quarterbacks, about this idea of these 2 elite players at the top. So let's get into those 2 elite players at the top. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. I've got Travis Hunter as my top overall player in my top 50 list. I know you've had Abdul Carter there, but we both agree they're kind of right there, 1 and 2. Let me just throw it out to you first I'd love to just hear your take on Abdul Carter as being your best overall player in the draft.
Yeah, and I'll start this by, as we start getting to the very finishing touches. I've had Abdul Carter through the entire process, but I've had a wayward eye, Joel. I've had a wayward eye through this process.
Oh, are you peeking?
I'm just peeking at Travis Hunter.
I'm not a little peek.
I'm not going to sit here in front of the judge and the jury and give the all-in case for Abdul Carter, because there's going to be some deliberations. Internal, it's just me.
Interesting.
It's just some internal dialogue.
Can I influence at any point?
Yeah, I'm going to let you try and sell it. And okay. I don't think I need much selling, to be honest. But I love both these players. I'll start just Abdul Carter. What I love about him, you have an elite trait. Yes, he does. He can get off the rock. Like he has elite burst. He can turn the corner once he gets to the top of his rush. And he is a finisher. Now, he hadn't played off the edge his whole career, so that's still, I still think this is just like a piece of clay that you can mold. Like there's more in there.
Agree.
Now, the other thing is, because I hear a lot, he didn't work out, and now he's been hurt a little bit, and okay, let's see. Like there's some, I don't want to say questions, but I don't think people are labeling him as someone who's just like all in passionate. Like I don't hear people talk about him like that. And then I refute it and I push back. I'm like, guys, he played in the playoffs with one arm. Like, not only did he go out there and play, he dominated.
I was just going to say, it wasn't just that he was on the field. He was
the best player on the field.
I think he had 7 pressures against Notre Dame.
So I've heard that. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've like some people on the periphery, you kind of see like, well, how all ball is he and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, if he was just about himself and making money going to the next level, he ain't playing in those games with a bad shoulder. So
100%. And here's what's so funny, DJ, is like, no one calls me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm around that program as much as anybody. And that I never had that on my radar.
Mm-hmm. So
not one time.
To me, and I go, and I've always done this, just how the teams I grew up with and working in Baltimore, spending time working in Philadelphia, I'm a front to back guy. And I think if you look at, people always ask about like, well, what's the value of this, that, or the other? I go, well, yeah, look at the franchise numbers. Look at the franchise numbers of what players are making, and that'll tell you who the most valuable positions are in this league. And it starts at quarterback, and then it gets to the edge rusher real quick. Hello, Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Myles. I was just going to say, hello, Myles.
So to me, it was like that. I'm always going to, value that over a skill player. Now there's, Travis being unique in all that he can do. He's a special player, and I have him right up there underneath Abdul Carter. Here's my moment where I had a wandering eye. We did the pro day. We were covering the pro day, and this sounds so dumb to people, but I think you'll get it. So we do the pro day. He goes through the whole workout, which was a brisk workout. They wanted a fast pace. And he's, and in some of the routes he ran, he got some criticism because like, oh, it's kind of like Instagram routes. Like, he's really taking his time doing all these different releases and almost looked like an and one mixtape with some of the routes that he was running out there. But he's so dang athletic. He's got such elite ball skills. But it was the moment at the very end of the workout, we did a close up, and it was all the guys there. And you see the guys with sweat on them and the sweat through their shirt. That dude did not have a drop of sweat on his face. And I thought, this guy is a cyborg. Like he is just completely different. And that sounds like such a small, minute, silly detail, but that was the moment where I was like, maybe this guy's so rare that I need to put him in the number one spot.
Yeah, it's remarkable, I think, because here's the thing. And, like a little inside baseball here, when we watch film, You don't watch a game, at least I don't. I go in and I watch, like a defensive film or an offensive film or a player's cut up or a cut up of an offense or red zone or something along those lines, right? So when you're watching film, what you never get the opportunity to do is realize that dude, he's on his like 125th consecutive snap, right? Wouldn't you agree? Like you don't,
yeah, no
that
question.
doesn't. And yet, at any point watching either side of the ball, did you ever get the sense in the fourth quarter that you were like, nah, man, he's tired?
No,
I didn't.
The only thing I was trying to find, and I was trying to pull it up, but I wrote something over the summer on him because the only thing that gave me pause on him as a player was last year's Stanford game.
Oof. I like A.O. Minor.
A.O. Minor went for 294 in that game.
Yes.
And so when I was watching that, and I was just watching my one side of the ball, and then I turned around and watched my other side. So then I ended up going back and looking at it, and I wrote it in the article. I don't have it in front of me. The just ridiculous number of snaps he played in that game.
That's
I'm
right.
like, okay, the guy lost a little focus for a handful of plays because he was literally out there the entire time.
And a little even more backstory to that. It was, yes, he got tired. He was also coming off of that injury. Remember, he got injured against Colorado State.
Yeah.
And so he was just coming back from that. So that was his worst physical, as far as fitness level, that was his worst physical fitness level that he ever played with, was that Stanford game. And that was the only one that you could see him get tired late. All right. My thing, and I want your take on both sides, this whole wide receiver corner issue that teams are going to have to answer. Okay, but quick on Abdul Carter from me. I've seen him since like day one at Penn State and been excited about him day one on Penn State. In fact, James Franklin and I, we were sitting on the field, their opener against Purdue a few years ago when he was a true freshman. And obviously when a true freshman has number 11, you're like, okay, your antenna is raised. It's somebody, it's something at Penn State. The sticks mean something, and hopefully they will moving forward. And so, we're talking about Abdul, and he was like, yeah, he's going to be a special guy. And then he said right there, he was like, listen, he's naturally right now an off the ball player, but eventually he's going to be an on the ball player. And I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And that's exactly the trajectory that he went. Unfortunately, by the way, his first snap of his college career in that Purdue game, he got a targeting penalty. Was ejected.
One play in.
And I had built him up before he even got in the game. And then he gets in and I'm like, oh man, well, you got to watch this kid. Bam, targeting call. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I love the fact that he's got versatility in his bag, because one of the things that I value a lot, in particular from defenders, is the ability to be on the field and be impactful regardless of what you're doing personnel grouping wise. And he can do that. He can play off the ball. He can play on the ball. They moved him around. I really believe, and I know this is it's a huge statement, and this should tell you everything about how much I love Travis Hunter, because this is how much I love Abdul Carter. I believe he can have a Micah Parsons-like impact in the NFL. I think it's there. And what you said, just like quickly at the top about like he hasn't even scratched the surface on the edge, that's why. Mm-hmm. Is because he's done all of this and can dominate and hasn't even scratched the surface on the edge. And once we see that, he's going to be a dynamic player. On to Travis, you're 100% right. He's built like a dolphin, just all muscle. He's just a muscle, and he's a remarkable talent. I love his instincts. He plays both positions with incredible instincts, with incredible ball skills. And he's got elite quickness and suddenness, and yet he understands how to, what I would call like tempo players on both sides of the ball. And then here's where I sit when it comes to playing on each side. I think that at the next level, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong or you're hearing differently, I think that he's going to be a full-time defender, because he should be, because it's really tough to find a guy with those type of traits as a cover corner. And then I think you can slot him in very easily as a 2 or 3 wide receiver, probably more of a 3, in order to limit 15 to 18 snaps a game from him. And you can do that on the offensive side. So he's a full-time offensive player as a number 3 wide receiver, but a number 3 wide receiver is probably only going to get, I don't know, I would say 30 to 35 snaps, pending big formations, short yardage, whatever goes on from a game situation standpoint. And that's a way that you can limit him to 80 to 95 snaps versus the 125 that he was playing at Colorado. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So the conventional wisdom with two-way players forever has been, first of all, a conversation that doesn't get talked about is what meeting room is he in? Meeting rooms go on at the same time. You're going to have to be in one or the other. So he's going to have to major, at least in a meeting standpoint, on one side of the ball versus the other. It's always been major in defense, minor in offense. You have a package of plays on offense, but you're a full-time defensive player. He's the first one that I've ever lobbied for the opposite. And
I love this. I've not heard you say this. I cannot wait to hear this.
Well, to me, I think where he is, he's further along on offense, number one. Number two, he wants to play offense. He lists himself as a wide receiver who plays DB, not the other way around. And that's even at his pro day when they asked him about that. Like, he was very adamant that he sees himself as an offensive player. As a defensive player, I don't think this is a Pat Surtain, leave him over on the side and press, leave him on that half of the field and let him go. I think he's better playing top down. You mentioned his instincts. That's where he is absolutely at his best, where he can see things, set traps, drive on the ball, and make all kinds of plays. I think he's still developing in some of the other areas as a corner. But if I'm the New England Patriots, he's coming in. He is going to help Drake May right now. And we've got Gonzalez out there on one side. I think they just paid Carlton Davis in the offseason. So I think it is going to vary by team how they view that. And then it was like, okay, well, how would you package him? How would you package him on defense? To me, my idea, and I have not had a chance to talk. I've talked to some defensive coordinators, but they're all the way this thing works behind the curtain. When you're talking to a defensive coordinator who's picking in the teens, he ain't watching Travis Hunter. I can tell you that. He ain't wasting his time on that one. So tough to have that conversation. But I would sprinkle him on some third downs. Like, to me, it's a get off the field down, go ahead and get out there.
It's a nickel guy. It's an instincts guy, almost like a
player.
So now what's coming to mind is like a Mikey Sainristil still, and what he did moving, because he was a full-time wide receiver and didn't play both at the same time, but then like moved to defense and was so good in the middle of the field for Michigan, and then has done a remarkable job in his rookie year as kind of one of those middle of the field
too. He can play
instinctual
He
players.
Showed a little bit of the ability to do everything there last year with Washington. The last point I'll make on Hunter, Joel, is and I'll love to get your thoughts on this. In college, it is, I call it like a sea to shining sea offense. Like you are watch Tennessee. I mean, they are literally spreading you from sideline to sideline. And the NFL is a bunch league. They are going to bring you in and they are going to put you in run fits. So from a physical toll standpoint, I thought Travis didn't have to get involved as much as a run defender. He's willing. He'll get guys on the ground. But like you start playing against the Sean McVays and the Kyle Shanahans, they're going to line in a bunch. They're going to leave you unblocked, and you're going to have to tackle that 230-pound running back a handful of times a game. So I think the physical toll of it, not the play count. I know because people have made that case. You're going to play more plays in college. There's faster pace. It'll be easier in the NFL. Longer season, bigger guys, and they're going to pull you into the run game, I think, more so than you would in college. That's my take on it.
Well, you are a very smart man. I had not thought of it that way. I thought that I had figured out this idea of how to limit him and yet make him full-time on each side, but I hear that. I will hand that to you. That's a good one, in particular because of his instincts, right?
How fun is this? Like, we've never talked about this.
Here's what's great about what we're doing right now is that this is exactly what's happening in NFL front offices all over the league. Well, I shouldn't say all over the league. In those top few picks, this is the conversation that they're having. And someone's going to have to make an argument and win the argument in order to win him to their side of the football. And I do think that's
who wins that argument? Is when Drake May, if he's there on the clock and says, guys, where he's gonna be on our side of the ball. Okay.
Totally. That's exactly right. All right. I have a few more. And as I thought you and I were going to go long, this one, we can be quicker because we both love him.
Yeah.
Ashton Jeanty. How high do you think he can go? I know what is he, all the way up to number 3 on your prospect list?
Yeah, he started there and he's going to end there. I mean, to me, he's the third player. I think those two guys at the top for me, the two we just discussed, are in their own category, and Ashton Jeanty is right behind that. MJD is who he reminds me of. There's no surface area to hit on this guy. He's a natural runner. He's instinctive. He's got balance. And then on top of that, Joel, and everything I've heard about this kid, like the intangibles are off the charts. Like,
real deal. I mean, he ended his career at Boise in the NIL era.
Yeah.
He could have gotten $1 million+ bucks last year.
Yeah, I would take the over on that.
Let me throw something out at you. Let me play devil's advocate. Let me preface this by saying, you know how this goes in draft settings. Everyone's like, oh, you hate him. No, I love Jeanty. I think Jeanty's phenomenal. Best back in the draft. Love this guy. You made the argument that the competition that Shedeur played and the league that he played affected your rating of him, or at least his aspect of like magician.
Of the translating, of some of it translating.
Translating.
Yeah.
Any of those concerns with Ashton Jeanty? Because there's not a lot of surface area to hit. And he broke a lot of tackles in the Mountain West.
Oregon is in the Big Ten, correct?
Correct.
How did they do last year, by the way?
They were really good. Number 1 in the country.
Okay. Well, he did okay against them. You can
go
back and watch that. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't catch him. Washington State's a good program. I know they got screwed in the whole realignment thing, but it was a hot knife through butter through them. And to be honest with you, the ruggedness with which he compiled the yards in the playoff game, which the numbers aren't going to wow you, but if you watch that game, he turned more -3s into +4s and 5s in that game. You're like, and it was, he was a solo mission on that.
Yeah, and he was the sole focus of the defense.
Bring your own blocker day.
Yeah, exactly, because he had 22 individual eyes on him, in that game, right? So,
and like with him, I got, the level of competition. Obviously, you always factor that in. But I didn't see there was nothing disqualifying from him. In fact, in some ways, I've been getting a more so on the usage. Like, gosh, he's carried the ball so many times. Do you worry that he's run down? And I'm like, that's where I like the fact that he wasn't in the Big Ten or the SEC.
Sure, it's not the same level of carry.
They're not the violent contact in that league, over his career that he would have seen in those other leagues.
I'm going to get to a couple of the guys that I wanted to talk about. In another question. So I'll just throw this out at you. I do think to be that high, to be a guy that you've got to be able to catch it. And it's not that he can't, because he played wide receiver in high school. He was a slot wide receiver in high school, so he can catch it. I think, and I've made this point before. His lack of catches last year was on purpose so that he could try to break Barry Sanders' record. If you're going to have him touch it 28 to 32 times a game, if you're Boise State, they're going to be rushes so they can go in the rushing category so he can potentially win the Heisman Trophy. They weren't going to have him run it 21 times and catch it 10 times so that he could be like an 1,800 and 700 guy. Yeah. They wanted 2,600 or 2,700 yards rushing so he could potentially win the Heisman. So that's what I'll say. He had a lot more catches early in his career.
He doesn't fight the ball either. Sometimes you can watch a guy catch 10 balls. I don't need to see him catch 100 balls to know if he's got natural hands, he can catch the ball. That's
spoken like a seasoned scout right there. Best position group in the draft. Who is it?
To me, I would say defensive line as a whole.
Yes. I took a chance with this one, hoping I was like, I want to talk about a couple of the specific players, but I'm going to pose it in this question, and you walked right in. I love it.
Yeah, no, to me, and it's a mixture of DTs. It's a really deep DT draft. So start there, and then defensive, edge guys. It's, to me, like if you're looking at the themes of this draft, one of the themes of this draft, which is going to be fascinating, it has been fascinating for teams, and I've had some spirited discussions, and I've messed with some of my buddies who are GMs to just take the other side of arguments because of where they come down. It is a traits versus production draft, man. Mm-hmm. Like there's not many guys who have both, and that's why this is a starter, not star draft. When you have the traits and the production, you're Abdul Carter. He's a star. There are not many of those guys that have the traits and the production. You got to pick one, and you got to gamble a little bit on the other side of it that's missing. So that's the fascinating debate.
Where do you fall in that argument? I know, but please tell my audience.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I just, at the end of the day, I value guys who are good football players, and I joked about one player in this draft the team was really, really high on, and is how twitched up and explosive he is. And I'm like, I love twitched up and explosive. I love twitched up and explosive, but if you can't find the football, what the frick good does it do? So I mean, that's why I was like, we can get into all the scouties, and I can give you scout terms and keep you on here for 5 more hours throwing out a bunch of scout terms. At the end of the day, like, you have to be good at football, right? Like, isn't that part of the deal?
Do you know what traits get you?
Potential get you fired. I have heard that once a few times.
Yeah. Fired. Yeah. That's what traits get you. Production wins games, and I'm 100% with you on this. I love the defensive tackles in this draft. A couple that I was around a lot were the 2 Michigan guys, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. And these guys, and what's fascinating is talking with 3 individuals that are now firmly in the league. And I've heard them talk about these 2 players specifically since they were true freshmen. And I'm talking about Jim Harbaugh, Mike McDonald, and Jesse Minter, And so going back to those discussions, and I've gone all the way back, I've got my trusty leather. Baby. Yeah, there we go. I went all the way back to some of those TV production meetings that I had with those guys. And I remember, and I went back and looked at some notes, Mike McDonald telling me when Kenneth Grant was just barely sprinkled in and some packages for them and just getting on the field. And Mike McDonald told me, he was like, Kenneth Grant isn't going to be the best Michigan defensive tackle, but he will eventually be the best defensive tackle in the NFL. And I was like, whoa, because they had Mason Graham and they had Chris Jenkins and they had all these different guys. And he said that about Kenneth Grant. I'd love to hear your thoughts on both of those Michigan players, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of the discussion that we just had, whereas, Mason's been a more productive, more impactful player during his time there, and Mason's up there in my top 5 players, top 6 players. I can remember where
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
Exactly.
He's an incredible player.
He is never on the ground. Like, to me, if the equipment guy didn't feel like washing his jersey, he never would have to, because there's never a stain on it, because he just plays with balance and leverage. You can see the wrestling background and how he plays. He is ultra instinctive and can find and play the ball. And I think there's more meat on the bone as a pass rusher once he gets to the NFL and they let him maybe play on an edge a little bit more, let him get up the field. I think you'll see more pass rush from him. But the player comps, when I was looking at it with him, Kyle Williams is one that came to mind, who was a great player for a long time with the Buffalo Bills. Same thing, never on the ground, leverage, strength, instincts. Another one was a player, I don't know many people remember him, but was Luis Castillo, who played with the Chargers, was a second-round pick out of Northwestern. He was there with Jamal Williams during those years. Was a really good player. So those guys he kind of reminded me of. Then Kenneth Grant, like you're kind of see the flashes. I don't know. Did you call the SC? You didn't call the SC game.
I did not call SC.
Okay, but that game was the game where you're like, okay, if I talk to guys who are like, I don't see it with Kenneth Grant. I go, watch SC game.
Watch the SC. Watch the first play of the game. He literally just throws the lineman down and tackles the TFL, and you're like,
it's all in there. It's all in there. He plays hard. He's obviously a big freak athlete. What's his nickname? Like the Mutant or something? He's got it.
How about when he chased down Nick Singleton from Penn State?
Back. Yeah. And so I hear the pushback I hear from him, and I talked to this was a defensive coordinator in the NFL I talked to last week, and he said, I've never seen somebody live off of running down a running back, more than this guy. Like, I just don't see it with him. So he chased a guy 30 yards down the field. Like, that doesn't help me when I'm trying to, get off the field on 3rd and 3. So what I'm saying is,
did he turn on the Ohio State film? Did this coach turn on the Ohio State film? Those two guys, the two guys we're talking about, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. The two of them.
Well, yeah, and I think also the Ohio State, obsession with trying to cram the football into their two best players. I don't know. I know there's theories, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble, and I don't want to get you in trouble at all. But there are at least theories floating around that there was a pretty big hit in that game early in the game, and then on the quarterback, and Ohio State was like, okay, we can't do what we want to do. Obviously, that team that we saw in the playoffs did not resemble anything that we saw in that Michigan game.
No, you're talking about a hit that Will Howard took. I believe Correct. Was it Makari Page who hit him?
I can't remember. I just know he took a wicked shot in that game, and he took not very good after that.
Dude, Michigan will hit you, and he got whacked by one of the safeties going for a first down early and was not the same after that. Not the same at all.
It was to the point where, like, watching the game, and I maybe, I love listening to you, but I might have had something else going on. I had the game on the background. I think the Chargers were on the road was what it was. So in following the game, I didn't pick up on that hit. And I just remember watching the rest of the game going, why are they trying to attack the best two players on the field? That's the worst thing you could do is try and run the ball at those two guys. And then I went back and watched the tape when I was doing the guys on tape, and I was like, oh, gosh, dang. Like, I think the quarterback might have been a little dinged there going through the rest of that game.
We could talk. Shoot, I've got so many thoughts about that game in particular. I also think Ryan thought I think that Michigan basically unintentionally rope-a-doped them with an awful offense.
Yeah.
Because that offense wasn't going to do anything. And so Ryan was like, field goal wins the game. And all I care about is winning the game. And so he played a couple of times just for a field goal, and they throw a pick and they miss a field goal. And in his mind, he's like, oh my gosh, what do we, and the trap kind of laid there. And so we digress. Yeah. Defensive tackles are very strong. I love Mason Graham. I think he's one of my favorite players in this draft. I think that's probably the case with a lot. But there's other guys. Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan's a really good player. You're talking about edge is where you get a lot of conversation about trait and production. You're going to have a guy like Mike Green from Marshall, led the country in sacks with 17, has some stuff in his background from his time at Virginia. You got the production there. And then you've got some other guys that came in as highly touted 5-star players that had, what was it? Who am I thinking about? Shamar
Stewart had 1.5 sacks.
4.5 total sacks or something like that in his career. Correct. In his career. So that conversation will be had. Another position group that I want to get to, if you don't mind, tight end class, because I love this tight end class. I was around both of these guys from the Big Ten a lot, and they are as high of, I think, tight end prospects as we've seen in a long time. And I'm talking about Colston Loveland from Michigan and Tyler Warren from Penn State. Now, I actually have Colston Loveland, and I'm going to go first here. I have Colston Loveland ahead of Tyler Warren, but barely. And I'm talking about barely because I love both of these guys. But here's my take on both of these guys. One of them exploits space with creativity as well as any tight end that I've seen in a long time in college football, and that's Tyler Warren. And the creativity used in order for him to impact the game was immense. Just turn on the USC film and you see all the different ways that he touches the football and impacts a defense. You flip on the film or cover Colston Loveland, and he is in what I would call a more rigid offense that is not going to be as creative, where he's got to create his own space. And I think Colston Loveland can create his own wins as a better route runner and technician via route running, right? The polish that he has and the fluidity that he has, because they're basically the exact same size. So one player creates space and the other player exploits space, but doesn't necessarily create it on his own, because I don't think Tyler is as great as a route runner. So to me, what you have right here is you've got like the Gronk way or the Kelsey way, and it's both can be incredibly effective. And I'm not saying each of these guys are going to be that good and Hall of Fame level players, but I'm just giving you kind of a path of the two players and what I see from them at the college level. All right, there we go. There was my take.
Yeah, I've said the exact same thing. I did this whole conversation on the fact that we have two trees. You have the tree of Kelsey, which is the route runners, which is the change of direction, quickness, which is the separation. Then you have the Gronk tree, which is the bigger guy, what plays bigger, who's going to be a seam runner, who's going to be on the move, who's going to be an inline blocker, can help you in that aspect, and who's going to bully people when the ball's in the air. So he's not going to have as much distance between coverage as you're going to get with Loveland. Loveland's going to separate more. I have 6 and 7 is where they are on my list. So I have Warren at 6, Loveland at 7. They're touching each other. They're both
right
great
there.
players.
Yeah, they're both right there.
I just, it's what's unique about this draft. And to be totally honest with you, like one of the things that's probably, not great in terms of endorsing this draft is 3 of the top 7 players are a running back and 2 tight ends. Yeah. Like usually you want to be in a draft, you got a crap ton of quarterbacks and you've got a ton of big time elite edge rushers and maybe some big time playmakers at wide receiver. This is a different draft, man.
But I do think there's a lot of starters in this draft.
Yeah, starters, not stars. That's the theme. I don't think they'll let me go with it in terms of the banner that I wanted to put on the set, but that's my theme.
Should we? I tell you what. I'll buy us a couple of starter jackets and we'll wear them on the set. And
I'll take a Padres one.
Right?
Yeah. Dodgers lost again tonight, by the way. Neither here nor there.
We're recording this on Sunday. By the way, right after.
I screwed you on that. That's fine. They probably lost again today as you're listening to this. The way they're playing, I don't know. Their defense stinks.
They may have. We don't know. Last thing, and then I'll let you go. Who is your favorite player to watch on tape?
My favorite.
And this doesn't have to be a star. I'm actually looking for something like maybe a little bit more under the weeds that you were just like, man, I really loved watching this tape.
My favorite thing that I've seen in this draft is the pass protection tape for TreVeyon Henderson.
Stop it.
There's nothing like
Stop it. You're going to say this right now. We have not. Tell me you and I, we did not talk about this podcast.
Yeah. No. Is that what you wrote down?
It's exact. I'm 100%. You just literally stole my answer.
The way I described it was when I watch something that I struggle to find the right words to describe what I'm seeing, that I'm creating new ways of describing something. And I've seen him. We used to always talk about it's a yard sale, right? That was when you fit somebody up in the hole and it's like ear pad goes flying and it's like we just call it a yard sale. That was a big hit. With him, I'm like, it looks like, if you just slow it down, it looks like the Matrix. When he hits guys, you just see like the slow motion of like the arms flailing, the feet up in the air. Like he is an animal in pass protection, and there's so few guys in college that are good at it. Shoot, there's not that many guys in the NFL that are good at it. Yeah. He's one of the best pass protecting running backs I've ever evaluated.
I was so excited to give that take. This is incredible.
This is why we get along so well.
This is why we get along. Okay, I'll give some people some examples so that if you want to go check it out, you can go check it out. There is a highlight reel catch against Michigan State for Jeremiah Smith on the sideline. He goes one-handed. I mean, it's an epic catch, right? The only reason Will Howard gets the ball off is because TreVeyon is on the backside of the protection, absolutely in the chin of the blitzer, just pow! And Howard has time to throw the ball down the field. There's a play against Penn State that we couldn't even replay in the broadcast. This is inside. No, this is inside inside the broadcast, right? So this is what people love. Okay. As the play is going on, I'm telling the producer what I want to talk about during the play. Okay. I'm in the talk back. I can see it pretty quickly. I've done this for a long time. Like, I can see what the play's ending is going to be. And they ran kind of a quarterback sweep-ish, like power. And Howard's going to score. Or at worst, he's going to be inside the 2, right? So it's either a touchdown or he's going to be inside the 2-yard line. But what I saw is TreVeyon absolutely dismisses a Penn State player on the lead block of this run. So I'm in, and Will Howard gets hit and fumbles it out of bounds. So now we've got to show the replay of like, well, was it a fumble or was it not a fumble? And then we're in review, and the whole time, DJ, I'm literally hitting the talk back button, and I'm like, the block! I want to show the block! And we never got to it. We never replayed the block. It never became a thing except for on film. So the next week I brought my iPad, plugged it into the big monitor for our production meeting for the rest of our crew. And I was like, guys, this is what I wanted to show America. Right.
That's fantastic.
But yes, TreVeyon Henderson and his pass protection. I also think that Quinshon Judkins took his example and was an excellent blocker, more so than he was at Ole Miss.
He's a lead blocker for them.
A lead blocker a lot.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I think those two guys might be getting overlooked a little bit from a running back perspective because they shared carries. And then here's the other thing, if one layer deeper, if you peel the onion back, once Josh Simmons, the tackle for Ohio State, got injured, that was a shell of itself as an offensive line. Then McLaughlin got hurt at center, and they really couldn't run the football, which those two guys would have had far different years if they would have just been focal point backs behind a decent offensive line. And I think that it might have been a bit of a different conversation for each of them, maybe going into the draft if they would have had that production, but they weren't able to because they shared it. And then the O-line got banged up. But yes, that was my favorite tape as well. TreVeyon Henderson. Oh, what are some of the other ones I debated? Do you have one other one so we're not just like agreeing on that one?
You know, I've got some, if I want to go in a deep cut, like a guy who I think is just criminally underrated. And, you know, look how much we're going to be talking about 3rd round safeties in terms of like guys that get you super fired up. But Craig Woodson from Cal is a safety there who's smart, productive. He doesn't miss tackles. He's one of those guys when you're kind of going through a list of 20 safeties and you know who the top guys are going to be, and he's not really getting any buzz or attention. And I'm watching him. I'm like, hold on. Like, let me call my buddy at Cal. And I call him up and I'm like, tell me about this kid. He's like, oh, he's a smart. He's a great leader. You know, all the intangible stuff checks out. And so I'm like, well, what's the deal? Like, did people not think this guy's, well, he ended up running 4.45. So yeah, he's plenty fast enough. So I've got smart, tough, takes the ball away, doesn't miss tackles, ran in the mid 4.4s. I'm like, guys, what are we missing here? What's wrong with this kid?
What are we doing? You know what he is? He's a starter jacket. That's what he is.
He is a starter jacket. Thank you.
There we go. That's how we're going to start discussing some of these guys. What is he? He's a starter jacket.
Can we get a deal? You think we can get a deal?
You know, he reminds me a little bit in that respect. Remember Fuller a few years ago coming out of Ohio State? That star-loaded defense. No one talked about Fuller. Guess who comes out of camp as a starter and basically a captain for the Chargers? Fuller.
Yeah. He's a good player.
Really good player. Listen, I appreciate you being on. I took up more of your time than I told you I was going to, so I appreciate that, my friend. For those of you, you know, that I hate doing this in front of them, DJ is the best at what he does in our business. That goes without saying. But he's also probably the best person I know in this business. And so, like, listen, man, I think the world of you as a human and as a man and as a husband and father. You do incredible work, and I'm really thankful that you come on every year and we get to chop it up about the draft.
Well, everything right back at you. I've always enjoyed our time together. You're really one of my best friends in the business, and love talking ball with you. I feel like we get to scrimmage, like a thought scrimmage. You're like might be my favorite person to do a thought scrimmage with, and I think that's what we did here today. But I will tell you this, just a reminder: you've been doing this several years now on the draft front, but you know the pace goes pretty quick, and if you're going to drink as much water as you've got next year right there on the set, we're going to be 3 wide instead of 4 wide there, and we're going to be in some trouble. So let's make sure that you use the restroom if you're going to be consuming that much water before the draft. That's all I'm saying. I'm just looking at it like a big brother. That's all.
I appreciate you. I'll see you in Green Bay, bud.
See you, buddy.
All right, there he goes. Daniel Jeremiah, make sure to check him out, not only on the draft with me on the NFL Network, but his podcast. Check out Move the Sticks. It's one of the best podcasts out there. He and Bucky Brooks do that one. So again, go check that one out if you want more depth about the NFL draft. That's going to do it here for the Joel Klatt Show. We'll have more coming up next week here before the draft. We'll get one more mock draft before I head out to Green Bay. And we actually get this thing going as the 2025 NFL draft is, man, it is right around the corner. So we'll get you all squared away before that happens. Remember to follow us on social media, wherever you like to social media, at Joel Klatt Show. You can follow us there. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. You can hit that notification button and you will know when everything drops right there, and leave a comment below. That would be awesome. So until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see you with our last mock draft next week.